Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Dallas, Texas, it's time for Dallas Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Dallas Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us Hunter Johnson with Tophill Advisors. Welcome, Hunter.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing great. Before we get too far into things, tell us about Tophill. How are you serving folks?
Sure. So, just a little bit of background about myself and Tophill Advisors. So, I come from a consulting background. So, started my career with IBM and Deloitte Consulting later, and then most recently with Sabre, here, a travel technology company in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that is specific in the travel industry. And then COVID hit the travel industry this year, and second quarter revenue was down 93%. So one thing led to another, and decided to launch my own consulting firm, Tophill Advisors. And we're really focused on small businesses, helping them navigate the COVID-19 recession, and most specifically helping them reorganize their business in the event that those impacts have caused their business distress.
So now, since you come from a consulting background, how are you defining small business?
Sure. So that's a good question. In terms of the reorganization play, that's actually a very interesting angle. So I think a lot of times when people think of small businesses, they think of them being defined as, by revenue or by number of employees. But there's a new law that just went on the books coincidentally in February that allows small businesses to reorganize in a streamlined way. And the interesting thing about that law is that it defines small businesses by debt. So initially in February, when it went on the books, small businesses were defined by any business with less than $2.7 million of debt. And then when the pandemic hit the U.S. in March, the CARES Act in late March actually revisited that definition and expanded it. So now the definition of a small business is any business with less than $7.5 million in debt, which is a pretty generous definition. So it's a pretty wide, set of businesses that are now eligible to go through these reorganizations.
And then what's the benefit of doing this kind of reorganization? Sure.
So the benefit is a couple things. So what it did was it took Chapter 11 bankruptcy and recognized that wasn't working for small businesses. It was too heavy. It was too lengthy of a process. So typically it's an 18 to 24-month process. You're paying a bankruptcy attorney upwards of $1,000 an hour for that entire time. And if your business is already distressed, you just simply can't afford that. So there was a recognition that process was broken. So what Congress did is they took Chapter 11 bankruptcy and they amended it with a new subchapter, which is called Subchapter 5, that's specific to small businesses. And what that does is it allows them to reorganize in a much more streamlined day. So now it's a maximum 90-day process. It's much more lightweight. There's no financial disclosure form. There's no creditors committee. A lot of the kind of red tape and bureaucracy and heaviness of the documents that need to be filed is stripped away. And what it does is it allows you to get relief from your unsecured debt. It allows you an opportunity to hit the pause button for upwards of 90 days to renegotiate with your landlord, with your bank, with your other key suppliers. And then the big kicker is that you get all this relief, but in a traditional Chapter 11, there's something called the absolute priority clause. And what that means is creditors have absolute priority over equity if they're not paid in full. So more times than not, in a traditional reorganization, the creditors end up owning the company. But for small businesses, Congress realized that that's not going to work. So they got rid of that absolute priority clause. So what that means for small business owners is now they have a tool in their toolkit that allows them fast, streamlined process to get relief from that debt, to renegotiate their overhead expenses. And the kicker is they get to retain their equity and stay whole on the other side of it. So it's really for a lot of businesses that have been harmed for no fault of their own because of the pandemic, and aren't getting the appropriate amount of relief from the government, but they are bearing the burden of restrictions. They now have this option to save their business, save their employees, and retain their equity in doing so.
So now, are there a lot of businesses out there that are in this kind of distress?
Sure. So Yelp puts out a quarterly economic indicator report. And what they do is they go back to March 1st and they benchmark how many businesses since March 1st that were in business in March 1st are no longer, are permanently closed or temporarily closed. And if you just look at the permanently closed businesses since March 1st, and this is Yelp businesses, so largely, brick and mortar retailers, restaurants, boutique fitness, personal care, those types of businesses, over 100,000 businesses have permanently closed. So, and that's just a subset of all the small businesses that are, finding themselves in really distressed situations as a result of the pandemic. So we think the opportunity is very large and going to increase because a lot of those lifeline programs that were rolled out in the spring, so the PPP, the EDIL, the increased unemployment, a lot of those are being exhausted. And so as we move deeper into the fourth quarter, we're thinking that more and more businesses are going to find themselves in distressed situations, looking for what options that they have. And we think these Subchapter 5 filings that have been made available by the SBRA, the Small Business Reorganization Act, are going to be a very attractive option for them.
So you think like a lot of people were just hanging on through the end of the year, and then once they kind of realize their situation, is there a situation that they're going to take advantage of this?
Sure. I mean, I think one thing I've found as I talk to small business owners is there's two traits that are almost universal, is grit and optimism. And I think those are the two things that allow them to build their business, to be successful. And I think, that's what's allowed them to fight through the pandemic is their grit to be very resourceful, and their optimism that there's help around the corner. But I think at a certain point that, those two things, while important, I think it's important to be optimistic about the future. It's also important to, kind of plan for the worst. And there is a point where if you've exhausted your cash all the way down to zero, that this no longer becomes an option because there are some administrative fees that are fairly modest in the grand scheme of things. But it is good to be proactive once you realize that in the next 6 months or so you are headed towards insolvency, whether that's due to your fault or due to the fault of an act of God. It doesn't really matter. I think there's just a recognition that there are options out there, and the more proactive you are, the better. So
now you talked about this is a relatively new initiative for you to get involved in. Have you started actually having clients now, or is this something that's on the drawing board that you're going to deploy shortly?
Sure. So it's relatively new on a couple of fronts. It's relatively new in that it just became available in February. And there's been, I just checked in the dashboard this morning, there's been 1,120 filings nationwide since it went into effect in February, which if you consider the amount of distress that's been caused by, the volume of businesses, again, over 100,000 businesses already permanently closing, that's really a pretty modest number. And I think awareness is the biggest challenge. And that's really what I'm facing at this point. So to answer your question, I've been, talking to a number of different small businesses, getting the word out. And I think there's a number that are on the verge of filing these petitions and really reorganizing their businesses to become healthier going forward.
And then the part of the service you're offering is this 90-day reorganization?
Mm-hmm. So the 90-day reorganization is really the program that I've built that really sits on top of these Subchapter 5 filings. So the Subchapter 5 filing, again, it's a maximum 90-day process, and the program that I've built does a couple of things. There's both a financial as well as a legal part to these filings, and this program is really a one-stop shop that does all of those things. So we'll help you organize your historical financial documents. We'll help you perform a liquidation analysis that shows that this is going to be actually better for creditors to go through this reorganization. We help produce a 3-year P&L projection that shows that your business will return to viability if they get this relief. So those are the types of kind of financial planning activities, and then there's a set of legal activities as well around submitting the filings, appearing before the judge, et cetera. And I've got strategic alliances with a few different attorneys that allow those to happen. So the program is really a set of processes, a set of activities, and a one-stop shop that allows you to do everything in a way that is really specialized, and this is really all that we do versus the alternative, which would be finding someone who's doing this for the first time.
And then it sounds like also this, since it is kind of a one-stop shop, it's not. It'll be way less stressful for the individual to go through the learning curve, and like you said, cobble together a bunch of experts that may or may not be able to help you and yourself, and rely on your own kind of limited knowledge in this specialized area.
Exactly. So the alternative is you do a Google search and you try to find a bankruptcy attorney, and they will try to figure out Subchapter 5, try to get smart of it real quickly on the fly, and then they're not going to be able to do the financial part of it. So then they're going to have to subcontract to a financial advisor or a CPA type. So now you're paying someone to pay someone, and they aren't used to working together. And then, everyone's just kind of feeling their way through the dark. And it's and then more times than not, you're paying by the hour, which that's another big kind of point of difference is our program is a fixed fee. So our incentives are aligned. You want to go fast. We want to go fast. We want to be efficient, and we want to cap your upside risk. And that's what that fixed fee does.
And then at the end of the day, the object is to keep the business afloat just in a more manageable manner.
Correct. Is to reorganize for the future. So it's the 90-day process. Even that time is beneficial in that you get to hit the pause button. You get to kind of wait out this pandemic a little bit. Hopefully we get closer to a vaccine and all the other benefits that can come with time. And then when you exit it, your balance sheet is healthier. A lot of that unsecured debt is relieved. Your landlord has likely renegotiated with you. Your bank has likely renegotiated with you. So you're exiting with a healthier balance sheet. You get to run out the clock a little bit on this virus, and run a healthier business because of it.
So now, are you? Is your prospective client, the ideal client, is that somebody that is one of those Yelp closed businesses? Is that how you're identifying where to start looking for folks that need your help?
So it's really someone who's on the brink of closing or who has very recently closed. There's I won't get into the kind of technical minutia around the stages of a closure, but ideally the ideal client is someone who finds themselves in a distressed situation. They find themselves putting their own personal cash in the business to keep it afloat, that they're running in the red because of the pandemic, because of restrictions, and they were profitable pre-COVID, and they've proven their concept, they've proven their business, and they just need a means to get through this rough trough. And then we engage, we file that petition that starts the 90-day clock, and then they can go through this program, get their balance sheet healthier, and get on with their business.
So now you mentioned that there weren't that many people who have taken advantage of this nationwide thus far. Is your consultancy primarily focused on the Dallas and Texas area, or is this something that you can get clients all over the country?
we can get clients all over the country. My network of attorneys is based on personal experience and my personal network, so it's strongest in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and in the Texas market more generally. But that would be the only difference is once we go nationwide, I can perform my side of the services, but the strategic alliances with the attorneys would likely need an attorney that's licensed in that particular state. But that's not a particularly huge hurdle, and that's something I've explored in the past is finding those partners that would help us get through this process.
And for you, right now, you're just trying to educate folks, business folks out there that there is maybe a path out that they hadn't considered yet?
Right. So maybe I'll tell an example. I've got a call in a couple hours here with a set of investors for a restaurant that's in a mall in Annapolis, Maryland. And that mall has been all but shut down by the restrictions. And they're about 2 years into this business. They're franchisees of a kind of larger corporate concept. And they were going down the path of a Chapter 7. They were going to liquidate their business, pay the secured creditors to the extent they could with those liquidated assets. The unsecured creditors would likely get nothing, and they would lose their business. So it wasn't going to be a happy ending to the story. And it was really through their franchise development leader, who I had previously contacted, that they became aware of the Subchapter 5 filings and the ability to in a more streamlined way, reorganize their business. And that's something that they're now exploring. And it's really good for everybody. It's good for those creditors who otherwise would have gotten paid cents on the dollar or nothing. And now they have, more likely a healthier business that they can continue to partner with over time. And it's obviously, better for the small business owners. And actually, in this particular case, which is not unusual, they had personal guarantees in the business. So they had personally guaranteed they had a lien against their home that protected their bank loan. And that's when it really gets into being a hugely beneficial play is with the Chapter 7 liquidation, the path was likely subsequent personal Chapter 7 bankruptcy that would likely have required them to foreclose on their home, and that was really just going to be a pretty devastating set of events. And this is again just a much more beneficial play for all parties involved.
Now, so is that another kind of place to serve is franchisors so they can kind of give their franchisees options?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of different people that should be aware. So landlords, franchisors, CPAs, financial advisors. There's a number of different professionals out there that have clients or tenants or franchisees that they like to see healthier. They'd like to keep them as their customers. So I think that's another very interesting angle is for those types of parties to make their customers aware that this is an option. So in the event that you're a landlord and you're not getting paid, or if you feel like you're a landlord and you're the only one offering relief, you've offered your tenant 6 months of relief, but that business is still not getting healthy because you feel like you're the only one in that tenant's ecosystem that's really helping out. This is a way to systematically offer relief from all the different stakeholders in that small business's ecosystem to right-size that balance sheet, get them healthier. And I think that's true of kind of each of those entities: landlords, franchisors, financial advisors, CPAs. There's probably more than that, but those are the ones in particular that I've been reaching out to try to help educate and help them educate their end customers.
So now, if there is either an end user who might be struggling right now, a business owner that is struggling, or one of those kind of trusted advisors of the business owner that maybe doesn't have the expertise you do, but they want to learn more about kind of the ins and outs of this to help their clients, what's the best way to get a hold of you or somebody on your team? Is there a website?
Sure. So yes, you can go to www.tophilladvisors.com and you can schedule a free initial consultation there. And then we're on kind of all the social media. You can find Tophill Advisors on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. We're trying to put out as much kind of content and thought leadership as possible to help again, raise that awareness that this new option is a potential lifeline for so many small businesses. Or you can personally reach out to me and email me at hjohnson@tophilladvisors.com.
Well, Hunter, thank you so much for sharing your story. You're doing important work, and we appreciate you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully more people will become aware of this option, and we can help save more small businesses.
Absolutely. All right. This is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Dallas Business Radio.